I remember it like it was yesterday. There I was, just getting out of high school, thinking there was only one thing in the world I wanted to do. I wanted to go to art school. I wanted to be an artist. It was all I did from the time I could hold a brush. My folks didn't have a lot of money, but I figured that was okay. Because we just go out and I'd get a job for a little while, save up my money. And by the time I was done, I'd have enough money to go to art school. Unfortunately, Uncle Sam had other plans. Before too long, I got drafted. Instead of heading to art school, I was headed to Vietnam. And that was the last place on earth I wanted to go. A couple weeks went by, it came time for me to go to basic. So I get on the bus and this guy sits down next to me. He says, "Hi, my name's John." So Johnny and I talked for a while, and I could tell right away that Johnny was going to be all right, you know. We was going to become buds. We started talking a little while, and then by that time it was time to get off the bus. We get off the bus, and then drill sergeant there starts calling us maggots and giving us a bunch of green clothes and all this other stuff. I didn't see Johnny again until that evening. Johnny walks in, he's got his uniform shirt on. I looked at his shirt, looked at that little name tag thing he got on there, and I said, "Wow, Johnny, that's hilarious." I said, Your last name's Forbeshev. Forbeshev, that's, John Forbeshev, that's your name. He said, "I know. John Forbeshev, he's like the world's greatest art collector." He says, "I know, he's my dad." Well, I started busting a gut, right? I said, there's absolutely no way. But I looked at Johnny and laughed. He started telling me about his dad's collection, and I'm like, "Oh my word, this is really the guy." I'm like in the last place I ever wanted to be, and what happens when I get there? I meet up with the son of the world's greatest art collector. What are the odds, right? Sometimes I think there's a plan going on. So we're hanging out, and we became better and better friends. I used to try to sketch, keep my skills up, right? And a lot of times, since there was nothing much else to sketch, I sketched Johnny. And Johnny would give me a hard time about it. I said, "Look, if I'm ever going to end up in your old man's collection, I got to keep my skills sharp." So Johnny let me go. He was a good guy. So finally, we ended up in country, Vietnam. Now I got to tell you, when I got there, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. We talked a lot about dying for your country, but I got there, and when you're out in the jungle, you kind of get this feeling like, I'm not sure I want to die for my country. And I was pretty much equally sure I didn't want to make some other kid die for his. Well, we're walking through the jungle one day, and we ran into a few guys who didn't quite share our convictions. And they started opening fire. And I dove for cover, but I took a hit. And I thought I was gone, but the next thing I know, I feel these arms around me, dragging me to safety. It was Johnny. And I could feel Johnny flinch, and I heard him groan, but he kept on dragging. I knew Johnny took a hit too. He got us behind cover, and we were there. I looked over to see if he was all right, and Johnny wasn't moving. The medics came, they evacuated me out. They didn't need to do much for Johnny. He was already gone. That's the bad news. The good news is my fighting days was over. My better news is I didn't lose anything I needed to paint. So when I got done with my therapy, my treatment, I got to go to art school. And the first painting I painted was from all my sketches of Johnny. He got good too. I got an A. I did a good job. But every time I looked at that painting, all I could think of was Johnny. And you know how sometimes you get this thought in your head, and you know it's crazy, but you also know you have to do it? Well, every time I looked at that picture, I thought, I know there's somebody I need to give this to. But then my rational side would say, yeah, but he ain't gonna want it. But he kept fighting with me. And finally, there I was. I found myself standing at the bottom of this long driveway, up to this huge mansion. Every 3 steps, I thought I'm turning around and going back, but I kept going. I almost made it to the door when this Brit comes out. He's all dressed in his gardener clothes, and he's got this big accent. He goes, "I'm sorry, Mr. Forbeshev has not seen a visitor since the passing of his son." I was like, yeah, I know. I knew his son. He was my buddy in the army. Well, he said, and see what he could do. Before I know it, he's bringing me into this big foyer. I'm in there. I've never been in any place like this in my life. The place was huge. And I look on the walls, and there's a Picasso, and there's a Rembrandt, and there's a Van Gogh, and all these other guys all over the walls. And I'm looking at this rap canvas I got in my hand, and thinking, I don't belong here. I was just about to go when I looked and I saw him. It wasn't hard to tell who he was, because he looked like an older version of Johnny. He looked like he'd been crying. He looked like he was tired. I can't blame the guy. I walked over to him and said, Mr. Gorbachev, I knew your son. And I wanted you to have this. I mean, no, it doesn't compare to anything you got in your collection. But I want you to have it because of what your son did for me. He took one look at it. He opened it up, took a look at it. He said, thank you, and he broke down and cried. And I broke down and cried too, and I ain't ashamed to admit it. But I walked away from there knowing I did the right thing. I remember it like it was yesterday. Here he was. I was out tending the roses when I saw yet another unkempt artist walking up the drive. Hundreds of them had done it before, always with their wrapped up little canvas in their hands, trying to get their art into the collection of the world's greatest art collector. And I was like, oh no, here we go again. I walked up to the young man and gave him my standard speech about how Mr. Gorbachev would not receive visitors. And he told me he knew Mr. Gorbachev's son. I was hoping it was the truth. I went in and I asked Mr. Gorbachev if he would see the young man, and he said yes, in fact, that he would. He finally made his way into the room. He took one look at the painting, and it was the first time I had seen him smile. It was just brief, but he loved that painting. After the young man left, he handed me the painting, pointed to the spot in the wall, and said, hang it there. And the next day, I took down $1 million Picasso and put the young man's painting in his place. I used to catch him talking to it sometimes. That painting brought him joy for the rest of his days. But when he passed, he had no heir. And it was hideous. The executor of the will came by and asked me if I would take care of the estate until it could be sold. And I said I would. What else could I do? I've been with the family for so long. I would stay there day after day and take care of the roses and tend the gardens and take care of the house, but mainly I just answered phone calls as the vultures came. One after the other, trying to find out what would happen to the great collection of the world's greatest art collector, J. Wyndham Gorbachev. They would call and call and call, and finally it was determined that the paintings would be auctioned. The day of the auction was equally revolting, because there they were, all up and down the driveway, the most expensive, most beautiful cars you've ever seen. They came into the house, they pretty much trampled the place. And they all sat before the auctioneer. The auctioneer strode to his podium, and the first painting up the bid was the painting the young man had done of Mr. Gorbachev. He started the bidding, and someone said, wait, what is that? Away with that. Bring us the good stuff. People shrieked, they even booed. The auctioneer said very calmly, I'm sorry. This is the painting that the will states must be sold first. He started bidding at $1,000, and no one bid. $800, no one bid. $600, no one bid. $400, no one bid. It was getting excruciating. I had very little money left by this point, but I said that I would buy the painting if no one else would. And when it got down, I raised my hand and said, $20. I heard someone say, silly old fool. He doesn't know it's worthless. The auctioneer looked around the room and said, $20. Do I hear more? Going once? Going twice? Sold. He might have thought I was a silly old fool, but I bought the favorite painting of the world's greatest art collector for $20. Joke's on him. They said, all right, now on to the good stuff. But the auctioneer was doing something strange. He was packing up his gavel. The people said, what about the paintings? What about the dollies? What about the Vermeers? What about all this other stuff? The auctioneer said, I'm sorry, the auction is over. Oh my word, you should have heard it. The people screamed and gasped. He said, I'm sorry, the auction is over. Mr. Forbeshett's will very clearly states, the one who takes the sun gets it all. And you know, that is so true. We're in this season of Easter. Beautiful time of year. A wonderful time. Never done this before with my hands. But the rule still remains. The one who takes the sun gets it all. And brothers and sisters, if you're here tonight and you know the Lord, you already know that. In our world, there's a lot of stuff. This world seems to have a whole lot of stuff to offer. But at the end of the day, if you have Him, you have everything. And if you don't have Him, nothing else this world has to offer is going to match what He gives. Jesus Christ, Son of God. I mean, when we celebrate Easter, that's really what we're celebrating. We're celebrating God giving His biggest, greatest gift. The gift of His only Son. And why did He give it? He gave the gift of His only Son to pay a debt you couldn't pay. He left His only Son, His perfect Son, take your beating for you. Take your nails for you. Because that's how much He loves you. I don't know where you are in life with Jesus. You can tell me if you want. But I'll tell you this. I spent a whole lot of time in my life trying to get rich and famous doing this stuff. And I never got anywhere. And then one day I came to Him and I gave Him what I had. Just what I had. And He's blessed me beyond belief. I went from suicidal alcoholic preacher of a church to a guy who goes all over the place and tells people about Jesus. And I don't tell people about Jesus because I think I'm terribly good or terribly wonderful or any of those other stuff. I'm probably just closer to terribly terrible. But He's good. And because He's good, I want to tell people about Him. As I don't know where you're at with Him, all I'll say is this. If you're already a follower of Jesus Christ, you need to find somebody who isn't, and you need to share Him using whatever gift God gave you. Because the dirty little secret about our gifts and talents is God gave them to you for you to use them. If you don't know Him, I just really ask you to think about it. Think about the kind of love that it would take for God to say, I'm going to trade my Son for you. Think about that. Think about the worst thing you ever did in your life, at the worst point you ever were at in your life. And God looked at that point and said, I'm going to give my Son to the person who did that. That's how much He loves you.